Chag Matzot Sameach, happy festival of unleavened bread. So today is the first day of unleavened bread, a 7-day festival. Yesterday was Pesach, Passover, and I said, well, what is a former Anglican priest doing, focusing on the Jewish festivals? And I said to you, they're not Jewish festivals, and I read from Leviticus chapter 23, verse 2, in which it says, God says, these are my festivals. And then when we come to Pesach, to Matzot, unleavened bread, he says, these are the appointed feasts of Yahuwah, Yud He Vav He, holy convocations which you are to proclaim in their appointed season. During the first month, on the 14th day of the month, in the evening, is Yahuwah's Passover. Yahuwah's Passover. Yud He Vav He, Yahweh, Jehovah. On the 15th day of the same month is the feast of Matzot to Yahuwah. For 7 days you are to eat matzah. On the first day you are to have a holy convocation, and you shall do no regular work. So it's a 7-day festival. Excuse me. On the first day, it's a holy convocation. That's a Shabbat, a Sabbath. It's a day of rest and a gathering together. And it was, this was being given to Moses at the time of the Exodus at Mount Sinai. This is now Leviticus. So he's received the law at Sinai, and he's been given the instructions for essentially the religion of Israel. And so he has been Leviticus 23 lays out the 8 festivals, or 9, 7 to 9, depending on how you read them. The 8th day after Tabernacles, and then if you add the 8th day after Tabernacles and you add the Shabbat, the weekly Sabbath, then we come to 9. Usually it's just 7 that are referred to as the 7 festivals, and Leviticus 23 lays them out. Matzot, unleavened bread, is significant to us for the time when it was given to Moshe, to Moses. It represented the urgency that they had to leave Egypt. So God told them to bake bread without leaven because they were going to be leaving immediately. So that night, Pesach, Passover, they were to eat it with essentially their skirts girded up in the belt so that they were ready to run with their staff in their hand, their sandals on, and they had to use unleavened bread because it would need to be on the go, food on the go, takeaways. And so it had to be, the leaven is what caused the bread to go off. And so it had to last for the exodus, the escape, that initial escape where they had to get away and they'd need food on the run. And so it was a representation to still today to Orthodox Judaism. It's a representation of the urgency of the Exodus. And to us now, Christians in the New Testament, we understand it from the perspective of the effects of yeast on bread. And so we are warned by Yeshua to be careful of the parable of the a little yeast leavens the whole bunch, the whole loaf. And so it's to be careful of the leaven. And he says in Matthew 16 to be careful of the leaven of the Pharisees. And in that context, he's speaking of the teaching of the Pharisees. It was a hypocritical teaching, and so it was misleading. Paul speaks of it in the context of sin and negativity. Get rid of the old chametz. So chametz, leaven. So you may be a new batch, just as you are unleavened. For Messiah, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us celebrate the feast not with the old chametz, the chametz of malice and wickedness, but with unleavened bread, the matzah of sincerity and truth. And so Paul uses it in the context of what is good, what is true, what is sincere, what is holy. We are unleavened because we our sin has been atoned for, our sin has been taken away. And so we see and we recognize the festival of unleavened bread in two senses. One, that we are unleavened, that we are to separate ourselves from sin, the sin that entangles and causes us to fall and to separate us from God. And Yeshua is the one who was sinless. And so at this time of Passover, when he broke the bread and he said to his disciples, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." What we're doing is we are recognizing that Yeshua is the sinless sacrifice, the one who had no leaven in him. He was sinless, he was pure, he was holy. And so he is the only sacrifice that qualifies to take away the sins of the world. And therefore, it is only through Yeshua and his sacrifice that we can be reconciled to God, that we can have an eternal relationship with God. And so Yeshua brings us to God the Father and enables us to have that forgiveness and have that relationship. And so this is the Christian significance of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is not Easter, not all the different traditions that are held by Christians over the Easter period, very few, just about none of which are biblical or ordained or initiated by God in any way. These ones, the God-ordained festivals, the things that he said should be observed, these are fulfilled and point to Yeshua perfectly, to every detail. So, Chag Matzot Sameach. Have a happy 7-day festival of unleavened bread. Amen. Amen.